I'm the bad guy. I'm the
So week 6 brought another weekend of dramas and close games in the NFL. And to break it all down on this Monday evening, I am once again joined by my friend and yours, Eddie Ekwo. Eddie, how are you, mates? Did you enjoy the game on Sunday? Once again, traveling down to London for the international game.
Hey Matt, I'm doing well, and welcome to Across the Gridiron, guys. And listen, we do appreciate all of you. We do need you guys to help us and push out across the gridiron. So hit that like and subscribe button. Drop in a comment as well. Let YouTube do their thing. Matt, it was great. The experience was, and we're going to talk about the match in a second, because the match was not anything.
It wasn't. Let's be polite and say it wasn't the game of the weekend, was it?
No, it wasn't the game of the weekend. But also, I mean, listen, no offense to all the guys who enjoyed the halftime performance. I mean, sometimes, some of these acts that come on, right? I was just like, I mean, there were lots of people that were digging, maybe I'm just getting a little bit old, right? I didn't know who the guy was. Who did the halftime performance at the Tottenham Stadium. But people were like, getting into it. A few people around me were getting into it. I was like, okay, I was expecting a little bit more, more move your body type, performance.
You're expecting like a proper club experience, and I'm sure Giggs will be disappointed that he did not float your boat.
No, I'm sure he's a huge guy. Because the thing was that when they announced him, they really kind of hyped it up, and they were like, something like the UK's something, they're like when they say like the all-time or something like that. Clearly he's very, very popular. But not popular because I don't know him. You don't know him.
No, I mean, if someone said to me, "Oh, Giggs is performing at halftime," I said, "What? Ryan Giggs? What's he doing?" He's going to be like taking a football and dribbling around a load of cones, or sleeping with his brother's or sleeping with his brother's girlfriend, or something like that in the halftime. I mean,
that's what I would have been. That's what I would have been thinking about. I would have thinking about Giggs, the footballer. But he came, did his thing, and all of that. But you know what, NFL always throws on a show, and this is why the experience is so good, because it's not about the game, it's about everything else. It's the build up to the game. Oh, actually, the most exciting thing that actually happened was the flag football. So there was the flag football, the women's flag football. Oh goodness me, I said I was gonna remember their names, but they were great, So they came in, they probably did like a bit for about 5 minutes, and yeah, I have truly enjoyed it. It was probably more exciting than the first half.
Well, I've got to say that there's a low bar, and to be honest, Eddie, as a Cowboys and a Dolphins fan on these calls, I'm sure the standard was probably a lot better. I bet they could defend. But so the first big question I have for you before we dive into the matches: did you get in on time? Did you download your ticket properly?
So it was funny, right? So I'm kind of like, because shout out, and check out for the vlog. So we're working on the vlog now. We should get that out soon. So I did a vlog, of the experience, all the way into the stadium. So
and obviously, for the uninitiated, a vlog is just called a vlog.
A vlog. It kind of shows that I'm
showing your age terribly, mate.
I am showing my age, but I'm also showing that these things don't come natural to us. We're really working hard here, to try and pull this all together. So anyway, so I'm working up to the stadium, and I meet this family from Seattle. So they're coming from the US for the game, and so I had my F1 jacket, on me. So So they were also getting into F1. So they came in and said, "Oh yeah, F1, blah blah blah." And then we start talking about the F1, and then we're talking about all the different races and stuff like that. And then we sort of talked about the World Cup, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, so they've got their right to buy to get tickets in Seattle." And of course, I'm going to the World Cup too, because I'm going to the Boston games. So we talk a little bit about that, and then we talked about the game a little bit, and then they go off. So they were Jets and Broncos fans. So they go off, and I'm like, right, okay, let me get my ticket. So I had downloaded the ticket because after last time they want to get to the stadium and be fiddling with all that download to app. So I downloaded my ticket to the wallet, got to the stairs. You got the security people who then checking your ticket, and they were like, "No, this ticket's not gonna work." I was like, "What? Like, what do you mean this ticket's not gonna work?" I started having PTSD from the last week, and they were like, "Oh, you were sent another ticket." I was like, "Sent another? Why would?" So I'm like, now I'm thinking, oh goodness, I have this sinking feeling now because I'm trying to access my email, and how notoriously bad, like internet connection at a stadium is. So I'm trying to access my email, it's not working, right? So I can't get into the email. I can't even find. So eventually I get into the email, but I can't find the email they're talking about with the new ticket. So I go back to the OnePass app and said, you know what? I'm just gonna redo the whole process again, and then get the ticket. So I did it and then downloaded the ticket, which worked, thankfully. And then I showed my ticket. The guy scanned it and he showed the green light. I was like, oh, okay. So there was a bit of a false start, but I got in.
And what a first half it was. It was really worth going. So look, I look forward to your vlog from your from your mobile telephone that you have been using.
Yeah,
Granddad. But let's talk about the match itself. And like I said, as I said in the intro, albeit a very sort of hastened intro, that there were lots of great games this weekend, lots of close scores, a lot of one-score games. Could even been a record amount of one-score games there was in a weekend. This was also a one-score game, but my God, there are one-score games and there are one-score games. This was not a good game. Obviously, the Broncos, and when I think it was 13-11, I think in the end, wasn't it? The Broncos moving on to 4-2, and the Jets slumping to zip and 6. I mean, let's be honest, the big story is, I think, from this, it's the Jets.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank the Jets for being so bad. It takes the heat in the division off of the Miami Dolphins for sucking as bad as they do at the moment. And we'll come on to the Dolphins. But I mean, the Jets just look poor. Justin Fields had a poor game. He had negative throwing yards, I think, yardage in the first half. I think he got a total of like 45 yards, I think, overall in the game. It just did not work. He was poor. You had a really odd play call, I think, towards the end of the second quarter, the end of the first half, when, I think the Jets are down, I think, by a score, aren't they? And they do a trick play when they're about to punt, thinking about to punt it, do a trick play to get the first down. And all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, great, these guys are going to try and score. But then for some reason, the decision was made, actually, no. we're going to get the ball back second half. And I think it annoyed a lot of the team. Yeah. I think that was quite clear on the sidelines, and it was just a bizarre performance in that sense. And when you have the head coach having to come out at the end of the game to not only defend himself in the plays that he was calling, but to also defend his quarterback, and to say that he's asking questions if he's going to start next week, it's just not looking good in New York for the Jets at the moment, is it?
Yeah, it's not looking good in New York. It wasn't looking good at Tottenham Stadium, that's for sure. Never mind.
Well, no. I bet you really got your money's worth there, Eddie, didn't you?
Never mind. It was one of those games. And to be fair, we've had a few like this. I remember a couple of years, and I think the Broncos were also involved in that. It was also a slow, torrid game. And it was just going on, and you're just thinking, oh my goodness, are they going to score? I mean, the Jets took like the first half before they had their first down. The first down, right?
Yeah.
They started, with a turnover, right? The Broncos had a turnover in the first couple of minutes. I'm thinking, okay, this is the Jets have come out to play in London, and they went nowhere fast. After that, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh my goodness, how and to show you how bad the offense were, when you have a turnover, like within the 25-yard line, to the end zone. Normally, for most teams, that's the touchdown, right? You're kind of walking in, doing scoring points there. They didn't, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's gonna be that kind of a day. I think Justin Field was sacked 9 times, in that game. It was ridiculous. Um, the the Broncos weren't that better. So, I mean, I know that we're kind of talking about the Jets, but the Broncos were not that better either.
No.
There were a lot of unforced errors. Bo Nix wasn't doing much with the ball. It seemed like he wasn't quite sure what to do with the ball most times. And I was saying in that game that the defense and special teams came to play. The offense never left the bus, right? They might as well have stayed in the locker room, because none of those offenses did anything. But the Jets special teams actually looked good. They were getting into good field positions. They were getting punt returns, getting yards with it, but the offense just could not do anything. On the Broncos side, you could see Sean Payton. He was getting frustrated a couple of times, because I was seeing him, every time. There were times that Bo Nix would come down to the sidelines, and you can see him, like, I don't know if it was showing on the TV, but you could see him, like, really having like a engaging conversation, with his quarterback. And sometimes almost like the quarterback, kind of like Bo Nix is running to the sidelines trying to avoid the coach after they've had like a disaster series of play. The Jets always come to London, but I mean, let's not have that combination again, please.
No. I think that the fans, the fans in London, fans in the UK deserve maybe a little bit better than that. But look, we'll talk about another head coach under pressure in a bit. Funny enough, in the same division, but it didn't look good for Glenn today, did it? There were, as I said, there were some key play calling issues there. You defending a quarterback, and obviously it shows. I mean, Justin Fields is looking not up for this at the moment, is he? And he's a fantastic athlete. Is he starting quarterback material, or is he just the right player, wrong situation? I mean, we've seen lots of other quarterbacks who have suffered in teams and gone on to have great careers. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield as good examples. But yeah, this was just poor all around. This was a new low, I think, for the Jets this season.
Yeah, I mean, they've been trying to unlock this offense thing for a while, the Jets, right? Because their defense has always been good. They've always been middle to good defense, even before Aaron Rodgers. And that was the selling point. People were like, if they can just get an offense together, they've got a defense. And people were talking about them potentially getting to the Super Bowl when Aaron Rodgers got there. And even Aaron Rodgers couldn't make this big ship turn around.
Well, to be fair to Aaron Rodgers, he did miss the first season injured, didn't he? To be fair to him,
he missed the first season injured, and by the time he came, all that excitement had gone off, and so he just reverted to type. It's almost like the Jets, take you in and then they turn you to what they want you to be. It's not very good. But Aaron Glennon, he's a defensive-minded coach, so he's gonna need someone who's got an offensive mind to come and help him unlock, especially when you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, who He's gone around a little bit. Started with the Bears, went to Pittsburgh. Didn't seem like things were happening for him, and then he goes to the Jets, and you're thinking, okay, potentially, the Jets could be good. I mean, they had that first game against the Steelers, and they were looking good. He was connecting with Garrett Wilson. Then he gets injured, and then he comes back, and he's looked terrible since then. So, there's question marks whether he's fully there in terms of healthy. But then again, it's a combination of things, right? We're going to talk about another game where you kind of, the team figured out what they want it to be. They know that they've got someone that can run the ball, and so they lean heavily on that running back, and he allowed them to win the game. We're talking about Panthers and Cowboys. Brees Hall is a good running back, so I don't. I mean, they went off him very quickly. It was almost invisible in the game, and it just makes you wonder, right? Could they have leaned on Brees Hall a little bit more, in that game? I know that the Broncos defense are for real. They are, probably top 5, top 6 defense in the league right now. But you've got to try something to kind of kickstart your offense, because you can't go the whole season like this.
No.
And I mean, you would have thought, if you can keep the opposition to 13 points, more often than not, you win that game, right? If you've got just an average offense, you should win that game, because you're talking about a lot. 13 points is not even 2 touchdowns, so it's like, can you get a touchdown? Can you get a few field goals? Even if one touchdown, a couple of field goals, that, you're now in, good nick. So yeah, it's bad. I mean, for the coach, I feel sorry for him, because it's first time job, and this is what people are going to judge him on. People are going to judge him on his performance at the Jets, and we've seen lots of coaches go there, and struggle. Todd Bowles, I remember, went to the Jets, and he struggled, for a while before he went back to be a coordinator with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, of course, he now got the Bruce gave him the opportunity, after the win with Tom Brady. And now he's looking great, so probably another team that we'll touch on. So yeah, I feel sorry for him, but I think that they might give him time. I would want to hope that they give him time to try and turn things around, because
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the things in the NFL, it's an unforgiving league, isn't it? That they're up against a team who next week they're up against a team who's certainly been a thorn in our sides over the last couple of weeks, as they welcome the Carolina Panthers. So again, the Panthers have picked up a couple of good results, but it's a team that the Jets could be looking to win. They need a win in that W column. They need it fast. But let's move on. I think the main thing is you enjoyed the experience of being at an NFL game more than the NFL game itself. I think it's fair, and obviously you'll be back there next week. The next international game, it escapes me. The Jaguars Rams. Yes, yeah. that should be a better game, and hopefully it's a better game for the fans. But let's move on. We're recording this quite late tonight, so I think we want to try, and rather than go into huge depths in a lot of other games, I think we're just going to pretty much go around the grounds and just touch on some of the key points from some of the other games that we started on. And Eddie, let's put you out of your misery. Let's talk about the Cowboys first. Let's get this out of the way. As I just mentioned, they lost again a 1-score game, 30-27 to the Carolina Panthers. And I think that there have been plenty of games this season that sum up the Cowboys perfectly. You are the number 1 ranked offense and the number 32nd ranked defense, right? So you're literally top heavy, right? Shall we say? So again, great. Dak Prescott's having a great season, but the defense is so poor, and with every single passing week, it makes Jerry Jones' decision to get rid of Parsons because they need to stop the run and that kind of stuff, and trading him for an aging defender. It's just crazy, right? It's just crazy. And I heard somebody say today on a podcast that the two most important positions in the pitch, the first is the quarterback, right? The second is the person who goes and gets the quarterback, right? They are the two most important positions in a team. And you get rid of one of the best. And it's proving week in, week out. The only way that you can win a game is literally going and outscoring. Right, it's basically you're relying on Dak, you're relying on CeeDee Lamb, you're relying on all these guys to go and put in an amazing performance week in, week out in order to get the win. And it's going to cost you. You're going to have, you might scrape a winning record this season. But as soon as you come up against an offense with any sort of power, then it's game over, isn't it?
It is game over. The Cowboys like to give you hope. You win that game against the Jets, and then you start feeling good with yourself. Dak Prescott's playing well. You're thinking, okay, this is our year. It might have been rough, but we're smoothing things out. As long as we got Dak, we've got something. The defense is atrocious, right? We can't stop a pack car. That's how bad our defense is. It's just like it's honestly, I have never seen a defense that makes other quarterbacks look good. We are like your loser boost, right? If you're like feeling very weary, as a quarterback, as a team, and then you've got the Cowboys in your schedule of like, yeah, we're going to get right. This is our get right game. Like everyone is looking forward to playing the Cowboys, honestly.
If you've got a good offense, yeah. Well, to be fair, if you're a running back and you're struggling with yards.
If you're running back, you're thinking, I need to get paid at the end of the season. Cowboys on the schedule, you'll be like, oh, I just don't need to get injured before that game. Because
I think that's what you call stat padding when you play the Cowboys. I mean, we talked about him last week when the Panthers ran all over the Dolphins, and it was a good old Rico Dowdle, who former Cowboy, of course, who even said before the game. He was almost taunting the Cowboys defense. And I can't remember what it is he said. He was saying something like they need to buckle up.
He said buckle up.
Buckle up. And then he said, which you think, sometimes you think, oh, dude, come on. You've had one good game against a very poor Dolphins team. Don't go all in and you're going to get yourself punched in the mouth. And no, he actually said at the end, I told them they should buckle up. And I mean, his stats as we're talking about it, 30 carries, 183 yards. That's an average of over 6 yards per carry. He even also had 4 receptions for 56 yards and the touchdown. It's just fantastic. He's played, the Cowboys and the Dolphins have made him look like an elite level running back.
Oh, my goodness. He's on Saquon Barkley level at this point.
If he keeps this up.
I mean, 10 toes down. This dude said, listen, you guys are going to see me, and I'm going to pound. And he did exactly that. You know how, like, someone tells you, like back in the day when you're a little bit younger and they say, oh, I'll meet you outside at the end of school. Like we'll see in the playground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come with your guys, I'll come with my guys, and then you show up, and the guy wasn't kidding, right? He was like, listen, you can come with your guys, but I'm going to be by myself, right? And I'm going to take all your guys alone. And then at the end of it, all of you are like, on the floor, holding everything. And the guy just walks away. This guy, he banked it and he collected the money. Like he was like, hey, listen, I'm writing a check and I'm going to collect. And he did. Listen, Rico Dowdle, when he played in the Dallas Cowboys, he had over 1,000 yards. And, this was when the Cowboys were playing all the politics. They brought Ezekiel Elliott back, and you're thinking to yourself, why are you not letting this guy play, right? Why are you not letting him play? Because every time he had the ball, he did something, to that running game. But, We thought we were being too clever. And to be fair, right, he's gone over to Panthers, and you would have thought going to the Panthers would have been a nail in the coffin because they were not very good. You're thinking, why would you go to that team? Imagine if he went to a competent team, right? He could have just been amazing. He could have been amazing. I think he's going to get to 1,000 yards. He's already halfway there. At this point, and we're only 6 games into the season.
I mean, if he plays the Cowboys or the Dolphins again, he'll get 1,000 yards by the end of that game.
He definitely will. The Cowboys defense, I don't know whether it's talent, because there were some of these players that were there when Dan Quinn was there. I know that there's a lot of players that have left, but we had one sack in that game, which normally a Cowboys team, you get 2-3 sacks, get a couple of takeaways, people are tackling the ball. But every time Dak gets the ball, you're thinking to yourself, you got to score. Because if you don't score, this defense is not going to stop anyone.
No, absolutely not.
And Josh Pickens was amazing. Dak Prescott was amazing. I think in the last 3 games, Dak has thrown for 10 touchdowns, no interception.
Yeah, and today, I mean, you look at his stats: 25 out of 34 attempts, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that is great. I mean, again, for context, I mean, I know they played different games, of course, but Bryce Young only 199 yards, 17 from 25 attempts, and with an interception thrown in there for good measure, but 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's in order for you to win games, Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, they're having to have career games every single week, and you could have a quarterback who is legitimately in the discussion for MVP with a losing record. Right. Yeah. That if it goes like that, if it goes on like this, that's kind of what you're looking at, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, Dak would be good, and people are gonna say, hey, you can't get that MVP because your team's been terrible. This is the Joe Burrow story, right? Joe Burrow last season, we're talking about it. His team was scoring 30 points, but they'll be giving up 30 points as well. We are giving an average of 30 something points every single game. You can't win. You can't go far with that. You can't go far with that. You need to be keeping teams in the low. You need to be keeping teams under 20. You need to be keeping teams under 20 as much as you can. You'd be averaging 18 points in your defense. That's when you know you're going to go somewhere. So I already know the Cowboys are not going to go anywhere. And thank you, Jerry Jones, for this season. That's going to be a waste. We just wasted another year of Dak Prescott's career, because we know we're not going to go away. And 2 first-round picks that we got for Micah Parsons, that's going to do us some good at some point, maybe. Who knows? But it's not going to do us any good this season, that's for sure, because the Cowboys are terrible.
Yeah, you're now 2-3-1, which is not something I'm ever going to get used to saying. Next week, you're obviously against the Commanders in a divisional game. That's going to be a tough game. I mean, the Commanders obviously haven't blown everything away. They're currently 3-2.
Oh, they're going to win.
Oh yeah, I mean, it goes without question. I mean, but for me, I knew the Cowboys were going to lose as soon as I predicted them to win when we did our week predictions. We'll have a look at that later in the week. So when that video comes up, guys, feel free to watch and laugh at how little we know about football, which you probably already do anyway. But let's have another therapy session. We've had the Cowboys therapy session. Let's have a Dolphins therapy session now, because we can't even win when we take the lead with 45 seconds to go. We still can't win.
Yeah, it's
just like, I mean, this is organizational level of problems, I think, for the Dolphins, which we'll talk about. But just on the field, I mean, we're playing, we're playing against a Chargers team who are, lost their last 2 games. Who, I talked to them about potentially being dark horses for the Super Bowl. They've obviously had a bit of a wobble, but good old, Miami charity football team rock up, and it was back and forth. But things are good. I was watching it. I was watching on the red zone. I saw we technically thought, right, thank God, finally, we're going to move to 2 at 2 and 4, 45 seconds left. It's almost like, okay, finally, we've got the next thing we know. It looks like we're going to get, you give Justin Herbert 45 seconds. I do even think he has any timeouts, so he may have had 1 timeout left. You think he's actually going to get sacked. He escapes a sack, throws it down a line. The wide receiver, I've forgotten his name, takes in a nice 35-yard run, and all of a sudden they've got a field goal to win it, and it's just like banging your head against a brick wall. It's almost like a perfect example of how to lose a game of football. And I said it in one of our videos that I like the guy, Mike McDaniels. He just has the aura of a dead man walking. Right. I'm not calling for him to be sacked. I just think it's just the way it's going to go. He's trying to be a nice guy and not be a really strict head coach, but you've got reports of people not turning up to meetings or turning up late if they do turn up. And Tua came out in his press conference and saying, just basically called out the organization and the head coach. It's just something's not right there, Miami. You're talking about a wasted season in Dallas. This is a wasted season for everyone associated with Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, when we at the start of the season, we're talking about the Dolphins, and I was saying, that something is broken. At this time it was Tyreek Hill, when they were like stripped of captainship, and people were coming out saying very strong things, and that never goes well. People always talk about accountability, in the locker room, and you want people to be stepping up and want to be leaders, but there is a way you go about being accountable, and there's a way that you don't go about it that creates a lot of this harmony in the team. And when you're not fighting for each other, it's a problem, because when you get on the field, things are not going to go your way. And it needs someone or a couple of people to be like, okay, our defense didn't do their job. We're going to go out there and we're going to back them up. We're going to help them get through this game. And you play complementary football. And, that game against the Chargers, you're thinking, okay, right, you're 45 seconds, you're in the lead. All you just need is make a stop, make a stop, early.
Yeah.
Make a stop early on, help them run down the clock so that they've got no time to be able to do anything. And that takes the whole team. That takes people playing out of their skin. Like, this is the last game that they have. And listen, I know I've never played the NFL, and I don't know what it's like, to go out on that field and give the effort. And you can't say that the players are not giving their very best. You can't say that they're not putting in the effort, because they are professionals as well. So they want to go out and do what's right. But sometimes that isn't enough. That isn't enough. You can put a lot of effort, but are you putting your energy in the right things? And Dolphins last week were 17 points up and lost the game. And then this week, you get ahead, and at some point you kind of wonder whether psychology starts to play in, right? Do they have confidence that they can win a game? Do they actually remember how to win a game, how to hold on to a win? So that's situational football. It's that becomes like muscle memory sometimes. And that's why the likes of the Chiefs, are just so good, right? Because they know how to win games. They've been there. They understand the circumstance. They understand the situation, even when things were not going well. And we're going to talk about that game, against the Chiefs and the Lions. But at some point, the Chiefs were like, "We've had enough. We're gonna do what we need to do in this game," and and they score points and put distance between them and the opposing team. And that's what you need to do, right? You need to give yourself distance, because as long as it's a war score game in the NFL, anything can happen. It takes a penalty, to like swing things, in the other direction. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. And two bad teams in the East, one in the NFC East, the other in the AFC East. I'm probably just going to be hoping that the season ends tomorrow so that we can just kind of reload and see what the future looks.
Yeah, we would struggle for content if the season ended tomorrow. But yeah, I mean the Dolphins really just showing how to lose a game. Yeah, and McDaniels Daniels isn't long for the team, I don't think, unfortunately. Okay, let's move on. We've got no script for this week, so we really are sort of freeballing this today. You mentioned a game, so let's move on to that. The Chiefs picked up a great win against the Lions. Not many people saw this coming. I certainly didn't, but maybe this victory shows that talk of the Chiefs' demise has been greatly exaggerated. Big win for the Chiefs. I think it was 30-17 in the end against the Lions. Did you get to see this one, or did you came back from Tottenham? Did you stay up to watch it all?
No, I didn't stay up to watch it, but I did watch it later on today. And listen, this game, you saw signs of who the Chiefs were. And this is a quality win for the Chiefs, right? Because you're playing against a team that you might see in the Super Bowl. If the Chiefs get there, you certainly know that this is the team that is probably in pole position to get the NFC, the number one seed in the NFC. So when you beat a team like this, it gives you all kinds of confidence. It gives a boost. And this Lions team, they've been taking people and putting them on their knee and giving them a good spanking. They've literally been, scoring points at will. Jared Goff has been looking great, doing what he wants. Jameer Gibbs has been pounding. Amon Sen Ra has been dealing. So you look at this game and you think the Chiefs have looked suspect. They've not looked themselves, but you can kind of see them coming back a little bit. Xavier Worthy, is getting himself more and more into the game. He's showing up a little bit more. Kelsey played well in this game. It's been a while that I've said that Kelsey, played well. And the Chiefs called a good game. There was a time in the game that they were neck and neck. And then, the Chiefs, when, the score was 20, I think it was 20 for the Chiefs, definitely. At that point, it was still close. And then the Chiefs were like, okay, we've had enough, right? We're just going to steam ahead. And before you know what's happening, the Chiefs scored 30 points. And that's how you put a team, and you put distance between a team. And Patrick Mahomes is like, hey, listen, just in case you forget who I am, I am Patrick Mahomes. I've won this Super Bowl for a reason. And I remember Jared Goff when he was with the Rams, and played with the Chiefs. And I don't know if you remember this game. I think this game had over 100 points. It was like 50 something points. These two, Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes were just going at the scoring points for fun in that game. And these are people that have faced each other, a few times now. And I think that Patrick Mahomes rises when the quarterback on the other side is good, and when it's a good team, especially when you're playing at Arrowhead, you're just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And does it mean that the Chiefs are back? I don't know, because they probably might play another game this weekend and lose. But it was certainly a good quality win for the Chiefs, and a reminder to the Lions that wins are hard, in the NFL. And the Lions are beginning to get a reputation now where lots of people are beginning to like dislike them a little bit, because they do all these trick plays, and all of this sort of thing that kind of rub your nose in it. So there are lots of people. I was talking to people at the stadium, and there were a lot of fans who were like, "Oh, we just don't like the Lions. We really don't like the Lions." And maybe the other team that people don't like are the Bears. I don't know why, but somehow people don't like the Bears. So I was like, "What did the Bears do to you guys?" Don't like the,
Harsh. Poor,
yeah,
poor Caleb. Poor Caleb.
yeah, don't like the Bears, but yeah, the Lions. It was a humbling game. I'm sure this is one bump in the road. They'll probably be back next week, but it was good to see the Chiefs back again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was an important victory for the Chiefs. They're still third in their division.
Yeah,
But it's a tight division. You've got the Chargers and the Broncos are both 4-2. They're 3-3, and then you got the Raiders who are 2-4, and they play the Raiders next week at Arrowhead. So that gives them a really good opportunity to move into a winning record for the season. But look, the Chiefs aren't what they used to be, right? Well, they're not what they were a couple of years ago. But this is what happens in the NFL. It happens in this sport more than any other sport when it comes to price caps, when it comes to just the way the contracts work, the way that the draft works. This is why it's been so remarkable that they have been up there for so long. It's why it's so remarkable that the Patriots are up there for such a long period of time, because the NFL is built not to let that happen. Essentially, it's built with the idea that a team can go from worst to first in a couple of years. That is the whole premise of it. You look at the Washington Commanders last year as a good example. But now, it's good. It's great to see them back. And the one thing that I'm kind of noticing this season is that so far, we are 6 weeks into it. There's no team with an undefeated. There's no team is undefeated, and it's only the Jets who can't buy a win at the moment. Even Miami beat them, but I don't think this season there is an exceptional team.
yeah,
Like, there is no team that is standing out. It's like, oh my god, this is the Super Bowl team. There's obviously a few favorites. Bills, Eagles, Lions, all the kind. We've touched on some of them before. There are big disappointments like the Bengals and the Ravens, but there's a lot of very, very good football teams. But there's no real exception. I think trying to call a Super Bowl, the two Super Bowl finals at the moment, is incredibly difficult, which is great. I think it gives us a lot of stuff to talk about, when we talk about, our snap judgments, which we're not going to do this weekend, but we'll do it again soon. It's a case of trying and pick who think of that's like the Super Bowl winners is tough, and it makes it exciting, doesn't it?
It does make it exciting, and because last season you had teams that were winning. You had 10-1 teams, 9-1 teams. You had lots of teams that were having back-to-back wins. I don't think there is one team that has won like 5 games in a stretch, right? Obviously we only won 6 games, but undefeated teams, all went away, and now, I think this is probably going to be the sequence, right? You're going to have teams who are going to go 2-3 games with a win and then drop one, and then go 2-3 games with a win and then drop another one. I think that's how this season is going to look out. And there's going to be unpredictable wins. Teams are going to steal wins because a lot of the games are going down to 1-score games, which means that, you can go either way. So you're going to get teams that no one has a hope of doing anything will win games, because it's the NFL and there are other professionals on the other side, as well. So I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we're going to see teams that are going to go back to back with wins.
No.
I think people are going to collect them in 2s and 3s and keep moving.
Absolutely. So let's just let me just run down some of the other scores, and then we'll touch on the final game we want to go through. So obviously we had, just look at some of the other scores. Sam Darnold kept up his impressive season for the Seattle Seahawks, beating Jaguars 2012. You had the Ravens season continues to just be a complete mess. They went down at home 17-3 to the LA Rams. The resurrection of Daniel Jones continues in Indianapolis as they
Yeah.
They beat the Cardinals 31-27. Drake May looked great for the Patriots. They beat the Saints. Steelers had a good victory against the Browns. The Raiders beat the Titans. We had Baker Mayfield had another exceptional game as the Buccaneers beat the 49ers.
Oh my goodness. Before you go forward, right, we've got to
Yeah.
talk about Baker Mayfield. There was a play that he had in this game. This guy, honestly, I don't know what to say anymore, because I know I want Dak Prescott to win the MVP, but honestly, if he wins it, I would not begrudge him. No. There was a play, right, 49ers. There were two players literally on him. He was dead to rights. It was a sack. There was nothing. Next thing, Baker Mayfield is out of that sack. And then he's running, and I think he had like another 10 yards to go to get the first down, right? And then there are like two other players coming to him, and he starts juking them. And honestly, this was superhuman effort to get that first down, literally in that play. And I was like, oh my goodness. He's been exceptional.
Oh, he's been fantastic. He's been, and I think him and Sam Darnold, we've talked about it loads. You look at players, you like your Justin Fields, you look, and there are just certain quarterbacks out there who just aren't quite cut at the moment, and maybe even we can include Tua in that list. But your career isn't necessarily defined by your first team, or it shouldn't be defined by your first team, because there are options there. I think both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold at one point, weren't they both sitting on the bench in Carolina not so long ago?
Yeah.
And yeah, just look at them now. They're two of the most informed quarterbacks in the league. But I've kept you waiting for a while, Eddie. What we'll do is we'll end this week and we'll talk about the one game you actually do want to talk about. Thursday night football, the New York Giants beat the Philadelphia Eagles 34-17 in what really was a surprising surprise score. We touched on it a little bit when we did our predictions video, but I said we'd cover it this week. So Eddie, go on, just give us a couple minutes on this. Again, it was Dart having a really good game, rookie quarterback. He's going to have his ups, he's going to have his downs. This was definitely an up for this week, but Philly aren't, struggling at the moment.
Cry, Philly, cry. I mean, I keep telling you guys, that Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback. I keep telling you guys, but you guys are not going to listen to me, and you're going to say he's won a Super Bowl. Yeah, he's won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco has won a Super Bowl. Nick Pope has won a Super Bowl, in the Eagles, right? So winning a Super Bowl does not necessarily mean that you become a good quarterback, right? If you can get good teams and get there, I mean, we saw the Denver Broncos win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning that he hardly did anything in that game. That was a Super Bowl against the Panthers that Von Miller, absolutely went to work in that game. And the defense literally won that Super Bowl. So listen, I told you I'll be looking for people to take out the Eagles. I kept throwing my money on people, and finally people said, hey, listen, we need some of that money. I was like, listen, I got you. I'm gonna give you that money and you go do a job. They did a job. They absolutely did a job for us. And listen, it was beautiful to see. What happened to the Eagles. What is even better, it's how they're imploding from the inside. They had their players meeting, and all of that. And I was like, what happens, right? When you go have it's so funny. Like after you have your come to Jesus moment with your players meeting, the very next game you go out and lose. So it's like you're gonna have another players meeting now. Maybe this time around the problem was, I'll tell them what the problem was. They had a players meeting. It was only 3 players. They needed to have more people. So I think this time around, they needed to bring a lot more people in for the Kumbaya session. You can't just be Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley or or AJ Brown. We need to get a few guys in. Let's get Cooper DeJean in. Let's get Dallas Goedert in as well. Let's not forget, a couple of other guys, as well from the defense. Let's throw them in as well. Let's have if you want to have a meeting, with your teammates, why are you excluding people? That's how you cause division in the locker room. Right? You have 3 people go out and have a meeting and don't invite everybody else. Maybe after the meeting they had a couple of chicken and a bit of a nice drink, and people will be thinking, well, hold on a second, you didn't invite me. You guys don't love us anymore. So that's where they went wrong. They should have had more people come to that players.
Well, I think you need to remember that when you don't invite me to the Cross the Gridiron team meeting and it's just you talking into a mirror. It was. I thought you'd enjoy that. Next weekend they're playing the Vikings. They go to Minnesota next weekend. Obviously, Minnesota coming off a bye week after a successful international. Bit of thunder clapping going on there. But yeah, no, I think the problem with the Eagles, I think it sums up exactly what we were talking about before. A very good football team, but not an exceptional football team. And they are going to lose games. They're going to lose games that they should lose, or they could say should lose. They're going to lose close games against other good teams, but they're going to throw in games against New York Giants. There is no way they should be losing that game, but they did.
We called it, in our snap judgment. We said Saquon Barkley is not going to get to 1,000 yards this season. Coming off 2,000 yards the season before, and it's looking like that's going to happen.
Well, you struggle to get 500 at this rate. Okay, let's call it there. I think I've let you finish on a high note. To be honest, after what has felt like a proper therapy session by you going to one of the most boring football games of the season, both the Dolphins and the Cowboys losing games or finding new ways to lose games. But at least you got to celebrate the Eagles losing on Thursday. So, Eddie, let's leave it there for this week. All that's left for me to say is, everybody, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your grandparents, tell your wife, whisper it sweet enough as a in her ear, say what an amazing guy Eddie is. What a great way to keep the romance alive in a relationship. And Eddie, enjoy the game on Sunday. But for now, take us home.
Yeah, it's a wrap for week 5. I was there, at the Tottenham Stadium to watch the Broncos and the Jets. Please don't come back. We do enjoy you coming into London, but don't come back and do that to us, right? But I'm looking forward to the Rams and the Jaguars, and we'll be breaking all of that down in our next podcast. And listen, don't forget, right? Like we say, teams are going to go up and down. If you support the Cowboys or the Dolphins or the Saints, just know that there are other teams that are potentially worse than you two as well. So, like they say, misery loves company. So keep hitting.
We said there's not a lot of exceptional football teams. There's a lot of bad football teams. That's one thing we can say.
There's a lot of bad football teams. So you're not alone, right? Call someone. Call your Panthers friends. Call your Cowboys friends. Call your Dolphins friends. Call your Saints friends. Call your Jets friends, right? Don't remember.
Don't forget the Titans. Don't forget the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans. You're not alone in this. If you're feeling all alone, just turn around and look for a Cowboy fan and give them a hug, because you're probably going through the same thing. And with that, we'll see you at the next Across the Gridiron.
I'm the bad guy. I'm the